City Council regular meeting agenda, April 22nd, 5 p.m., St. George City Hall, 14100 Airline Highway, St. George, Louisiana. We will officially call this meeting to order, and as always, we will stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do our roll call. Councilman Monticello? Here. Councilwoman Cook? Here. Councilman Himmel? Here. Councilman Edmonds? Here. Councilman Heck is out of town. However, we do have a quorum, so we can move forward. Approval of minutes of the April 8th, 2025 council meeting. They were sent out to all the council members, and they reviewed the minutes. Motion to approve by Councilman Himmel. Second by Councilwoman Cook. You beat them. Any opposition to that? Hearing none, the meeting minutes from April 8th, 2025 have been approved. The next item here was a proclamation declaring May National Tennis Month. I don't have that proclamation in front of me right now. If I get it before the end of the meeting, I'll circle back to this. If not, you tennis players out there will have to wait to the first meeting in May to declare National Tennis Month here in the city of St. George. So I apologize for that. Next up, presentation from IBTS Program Director on financial reports.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. This is a copy of the financial report, which you have in your binders. Probably the easiest thing is just to skip over to page 8, which starts out with a month-by-month comparison. And as you can see, the cash equivalents on hand for the city have increased each month. You can see the month by month there. And then on the next page, you can see month by month comparisons and expenses in each column. And then at our column, you see a comparison of where we are with the expenses as compared to budget, and we are in compliance. Any questions? And can you see that small? We got it all on one page, but it does require some special effort on the eyeballs.
Got your magnifying glasses on your iPhones there, and it'll probably help out a little bit. Important part is that our cash is going in a upward direction. Expenses are staying pretty consistent. A little bit more expenses depending on really what we're doing, right, Scott?
Correct. You know, as our total activities increase, naturally expenses increase a little bit.
And just to rehash that too, next month we'll have an increase in some of that because we've expanded the contract to include code enforcement, correct?
Correct. So next month, we will be starting 6 new code enforcement personnel, and they'll be driving around in all brand new city of St. George pickup trucks and making sure that we get the city cleaned up.
That's Scott. How do we put in request if you see there's a something that needs to be enforced?
Send an
send it to you
email to enforcement@stgeorgela.gov.
Do it one more time.
Enforcement at stgeorgela.gov.
Okay.
Probably something that we need to add to our home screen too on our webpage and get on the social media as well, probably a week in advance, I would say, of the code enforcement officers with boots on the ground.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you.
Okay, introduction of ordinances, resolutions for public hearing on May 13th, 2025. Item number 1 for introduction, ordinance to provide relative to law enforcement, fire protection, and emergency medical services, and to provide for related matters. Number 2 under introductions, ordinance to amend Chapter 15 of the Unified Development Code relative to floodways, floodplains, drainage, and water quality, and to provide for related matters. Planning Commission and Zoning Commission items for public hearing on May 13th, 2025. Case number CU 25-01 and V25-02, ordinance granting a conditional use permit and waiver for wireless telecommunication tower, 15755 Jefferson Highway. Commission action, Travis Thornton moved to recommend denial, seconded by Bobby McKee. Vote yeas, Travis Thornton, Lori Marion, Billy Aguilar, Bobby McKee. Nays were 0. Travis Thornton moved to deny V25-02, seconded by Lori Marion. Yeas were Travis Thornton, Lori Marion, Billy Aguilar, Bobby McKee. Nays were 0. Case number Z25-02, ordinance to rezone 2 parcels totaling approximately 20.11 acres from rural and commercial alcoholic beverage to light industrial for construction of an office building and to provide for related matters on 15324 Airline Highway. The commission action on that item was Travis Thornton moved to recommend approval of Z25-02, seconded by Bobby McKee. Yeas were Travis Thornton, Billy Aguilar, Bobby McKee. Nays were 0. Case number PD25-01-D, ordinance to approve a small plan unit development and to rezone 8 existing townhomes and 59 zero-lot line lots with existing private streets and detention ponds and public sewer to provide for related matters at 10760 Industrialplex Boulevard. The commission action, Travis Thornton moved to recommend approval of PD25-01-D, seconded by Bobby McKee, with a condition that the engineering department approves the revised drainage and grading plan, revised construction drawings for drainage infrastructure, and any required as built if the infrastructure is modified prior to city council consideration. If unresolved, defer item. Yeas were Travis Thornton, Billy Aguilar, Bobby McKee. Nays were 0. All right, Planning Commission and Zoning Commission matters, items for public hearing. So real quick, at the end of last meeting, one of the folks that were at the meeting, I believe he's here tonight, actually had a good recommendation on how we talk about some of these items in our meeting. And his recommendation was that if there's an item to be talked about, that the council can talk about it. We'll bring up anybody here that is going to speak on the item. Then after that, we'll open up for public comment. That way the public has a better idea and better understanding of what we're talking about. So if they want to make a comment, at least they have more information in which they can make a comment referring that particular item. So something a little bit different, but I thought it was a good recommendation, and it's something that I don't really see any downside, including the public more in what we're doing, right? And allowing conversation to take place amongst the council members and whoever is presenting that item prior to the public comment period. So if you have a problem with that, if you have an issue with that, come see me afterwards, but I think it should work pretty well. So but here goes nothing. All right, item number 1 on the Planning Commission and Zoning Commission matters, items for public hearing. Number 1, ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code relative to the construction and operation of group homes and to provide for related matters. Commission action, motion by Lori Marion, second by Bobby McKee, to recommend approval with 2 proposed changes. Yeas, Travis Thornton, Lori Marion, Billy Aguilar, Bobby McKee. Nays were 0. So, Scott, were you going to speak on this, or was Justin going to speak on this? Okay.
Spread the love. We'll get him up here next time. So what this ordinance does is for group homes, we didn't feel that that definition of group homes in our existing ordinance was sufficient, and there was a lack of definitions for congregate care facilities and assisted living facilities. So we just wanted to clearly designate what would be a group home and what would be a assisted living center or congregate care facility. And so this is going to help the people who operate these assisted living facilities more clearly understand, where that they fit into our approval process, and the same thing for the group homes. And so uh, I think that there's one of these group homes that came and talked to us at our previous meeting a little bit about how they operate. And that is another thing that the ordinance does, is specify the requirements and what we need for information and considering whether we're going to grant an approval for a group home. And it sets some parameters of how many people can be in a group home. And I think there's one of these from the people who testified here at our last meeting in Patty's area that she's familiar with. I should say Councilwoman Cook, excuse me. And so they have 10 people typically in a group home, and we've had some people that have come before us and asked to have a number far in excess of that. And it was our view that when you get into some of those higher numbers, that you're talking about a different type of arrangement other than a group home. So federal requirements for assistant or for people with disabilities, Americans with Disabilities Act, requires that that you give some consideration for people to live in a residential environment in a group home. And so normally you don't allow group living in a single family residential zoning district. And so those federal guidelines, as we all know, federal law supersedes state law and local law. But we do have to make some accommodation, but I think we can spell out the act allows us to more clearly define what it is that we allow and what it is that we won't allow, and the reasons that we do that. And that's what this ordinance does.
For clarification for everybody, what's the difference between a group home and a congregate care facility?
So a group home is, the idea is that you can live in a regular residential living environment. That's what the act provides for. And so a normal home is something that where the residents work together in order to maintain the home, that they are actively participants in maintaining the home, and they live together in although they're not family, a family type of environment. And assisted living is where you have professional medical care, and you have people that are having meals prepared for them, and they need more assistance than what a group home might provide for. Okay, thank you.
All right, we will open up the public comment period on item number one under item number one under Planning Commission and Zoning Commission at this time. I received no cards or emails requesting to speak on this, but if you'd like to speak, go ahead. You know the drill.
Afternoon, I'm Sean White, and I live off of Hooshoe 2 in Mallard Crossing. And I think that the definitions are great. I think it adds more substance to what's going on with this. A couple of things I'd love some clarity on, though, is just with the 1,000-foot separation rule. I know the house behind me is in a different subdivision, but they're within 1,000 feet. So would that be excluded to have homes back to back like that? And with the mayor's sole discretion to grant exceptions, could that be overturned by a different mayor, or does that last indefinitely? And like, what kind of things can you make exceptions on? Can you make 40 people live there, or can you change the color of the house, or, just some clarity on that. And those are my two big clarifying points. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to make a public comment on this item? Name and where you live.
Joe Torito, 10420 Pico Lane here in St. George. On page 2, number 5, it gets back to, the mayor making the decision. I'm wondering why that was set up like that. Normally the whole council would take up the matter of a waiver for some particular purpose. And I'm wondering why is just the mayor that's going to be making this decision? Should it not be the whole council? Nothing against you, Mayor. I'm just saying, and because 10, 20 years from now, we don't know who's going to be the mayor, Okay. The one other thing I might bring up is I see there's some areas that have been stricken out as that's being taken out of this particular ordinance, correct? I mean, why else would you strike it out? But the point is, the way it's written up and it's included in this particular paper, would that be the proper way to show? Would it not just be included, period, to show that it's been amended? Why would you include the stricken out part in this? Thank you.
Any other public comments on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period on that item at this time. I can answer one of these questions for sure. So the reason why it's shown what items are being struck out is so the public can see what's being removed from the actual language of the ordinance and what might be included in the ordinance. It's very standard in all forms of government, whether it's state level, local level. When anything changes to a piece of law, generally they always show that, whether it's in the ordinance, in the digest, whatever have you. So that's the answer to that question. As far as to the mayor's discretion that you're referring to in the 1,000-foot rule, I'd kick it to Scott to see if he can shed some clarity on that.
Oh, Mayor. So on the 1,000-foot rule, so when you have too many of these facilities located in close proximity to each other, then you run the risk of changing the environment. So the whole purpose of the exception for the single family living is so that the people can enjoy living in a normal residential neighborhood. If you were to say, let's for example, say that you had 4 of these located within very close proximity to each other, now you've changed the character of the neighborhood. And the act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, specifically says that that should not happen. So why the 1,000 feet? That's a number that many cities have adopted. So we just adopted a kind of a standard distancing that has been adopted by many cities. So that's really the only answer I can give you on that. As far as why is the mayor on council from the city attorney the designee to grant a reasonable accommodation? And the reasonable accommodation is to allow group living in a single family residential zoning district. Previously, and in many jurisdictions, that determination was made by a staff member that worked for the city. We felt that it was, since we're going to make an accommodation for a zoning district, that is a level of decision making that should occur at the elected official level. And since the mayor is an elected official that represents all of the people in the jurisdiction, and we felt that, in order to help him arrive at the very best decision possible, that he would consult with our city attorney who just arrived. And so that is, rather than just having a staff member do that, we thought somebody that was elected by the people should make that determination. And so that's why we did that.
I guess the question is, they're all elected officials, not just the mayor. And also, when you look at waivers, I was under the impression, and I hate to say that Baton Rouge, the city of Baton Rouge, parish of Baton Rouge, prior, when there was a waiver, normally that went to the council, from what I understand. Because I mean, I've been involved with quite a few of these issues where someone would come up and it would not have gone to the council had there not have been a waiver involved in that particular situation. Now, I just, here again, nothing against Mayor Yates, but it just seems like the whole council should be involved in this, not just one person.
Answer to that is that the Americans with Disability Act really takes the view that if a group home makes an application for a reasonable accommodation, that it is like someone applying for a driver's license almost. It's a shall issue. Okay. So it should not be unreasonably denied, but we still felt like since somebody is, and it should be expedited. So you're not supposed to put them through an elaborate process. And since the act really is leaning toward having a single person expeditiously make that decision, we felt that rather than having it be a staff member, it should be an elected official. And so this is, just to be clear, this is not a waiver. This is a reasonable accommodation. And so, and it shall be granted unless you can show some reason why it is unreasonable.
Thank you, Scott, for that explanation. Council, any other questions? Your motion? Motion to approve by Councilman Evans, second by Councilman Himmel. Any opposition? Seeing none. All right, new business items for public hearing and action. Item number 1, ordinance to amend the 2024-2025 fiscal year budget. We'll bring up Scott again to talk about this budget amendment.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So you have in front of you a list of all of the line items that are currently in our existing budget. And so what we've done here is that some funds that we had anticipated that the city would receive in working out our intergovernmental agreements with the East Baton Rouge Parish weren't received as of yet. And so, and some are not expected to be received. So rather than having these erroneous numbers and expectations for revenue, so I'll start on the revenue side, we amended those numbers downward, And so what this does is it makes our budget and our report for our financial report actually make a little bit more sense because, when we're not showing that we've received the revenues that we expected to receive, well, at this point, we know that we don't really expect to receive those numbers. So when we show our percent to revenue, we want it to actually have some meaning. So we adjusted those numbers. And there's some modest adjustments on the expense side where you can see the difference in the amended amount, which is the second to the last column. And for the most part, you'll see those numbers have been revised downward because we're not going to receive that revenue. We don't expect to incur the expenses that and create some of the work and provide some of the services that we might have provided had we received that revenue. And so that is really the primary reason for doing the budget amendment, is just to get our revenues and expenses more in line with realistic expectations. And with that said, I'll open it up for questions.
So too, Scott, just for clarity purposes, some of our earlier budgets also anticipated that we would have been taking over some of those services a little bit sooner. So we had some money in buckets there that would have been provided for those services. Since that transition hasn't fully taken place yet, obviously those expenses have not been incurred, correct?
That is correct, Mayor.
So if I'm reading this the right way, and I believe that I am, the expense side, the revenue side on the amended budget is roughly about 20 million. That includes some of the things that we're currently doing, occupational licenses, permits. 4.5 million constitutes our sales tax revenue that will come in June, and the 12.5 million represents the 12.5 million that would be included. Well, it is included in the intergovernmental agreement that goes before the Metro Council tomorrow, correct?
That is correct, Mayor.
And as it sits right here, and so, just so everybody's on the same page too, our fiscal year ends June 30th. So we only have, 2 months and a few days left in this fiscal year. And then the budget amendment, as far as the expenses went, the expenses went from 16.1 million to roughly 6.6 million. So if you do some quick math there, we're expected revenue for this fiscal year somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 million, almost 20.1 million, and our expenses through the end of the year will be around 6.6 million. Does anybody have any other comments or questions for Scott? All right, thank you, Scott. All right, we'll open up the public comment period on this item at this time, if anybody would like to speak. I received no cards or emails in reference to this. All right, I'm seeing none. We'll close the public comment period. Council? Motion to approve Councilman Monticello. Second by Councilman Edmonds. Any opposition? Hearing none, that item is approved. All right, number 2, ordinance to enact Title 12, Chapter 6, relative to the removal of dead or diseased trees and to provide for related matters. Who was speaking on this one?
Oh, me.
Okay.
Why don't you just stay up?
I think the next one might be Stephanie. Real quick too, just to add to it, and I'm sure Scott will touch on this a little bit too, but if you noticed a little pattern, if you've been coming to meetings and paying attention, a lot of the things that we've done over the last several months involves code enforcement, involves cleaning up our neighborhoods, cleaning up our streets, the beautification of our areas. And we're very close to having the final piece in place at the end of this meeting to kind of complete the circle of that process. And this is just another part of that process that we wanted to add. So I'm sure everybody knows a tree somewhere that's hanging over something that it shouldn't be hanging over, and creating a nuisance or a public safety issue that you're well aware of. That's probably been going on for quite some time. So with that, Scott, I don't mean to steal your thunder, but have at it.
Oh, that's it. I don't have anything to add. No, I'll just say that, without getting into the legalese, This is, as the mayor alluded to, to protect public safety. So if we have let's just say two neighbors, and one neighbor has a tree that is dead, and we will have a professional make that determination, the condition of the tree. And if the tree poses a threat to the neighbor, then we will send a letter as part of our code enforcement activities to ask the neighbor with the tree to remove the tree. If the neighbor does not remove the tree within the designated amount of time, then, and that will depend on the level of the threat, but typically 30 days. If it's not removed, then the city will have the authority to come and remove the tree. And then they will bill the owner of the tree for having removed the tree for them and give them the opportunity to reimburse the city for having performed that work. And should they fail to reimburse the city, then the city will be able to pursue whatever action that it feels like it needs to do to collect those funds. That could involve putting a lien on the property. It could involve litigation, whatever it takes to collect the money. But we will do as we always do when we are spending public funds. We'll make sure that we get a good price, and we will get quotes, and we will select a low bidder that has the proper licensing and capability to perform the work safely. And that's what this ordinance does.
This allows the city to remove a tree or prune the branches when it interferes with an intersection traffic control device or to prevent damage to public property or private or sidewalks. It does not allow the city to use its resources when it's only related between two neighbors, because that would be private property. So this is for, if you look at the maintenance of shrubs and vegetation, is sometimes necessary to protect utilities, drainage, blocking intersection street lights, those sorts of things. And so that's what the city would be authorized to do.
So this ordinance does not protect public safety if a tree poses a threat to a neighbor?
Only affecting private property, no, and that would not be an authorized use of city funds.
That's not the ordinance I wanted.
This is the ordinance that the law allows. So it allows, if there's any interference, and sometimes, trees are not just confined to one place or another, so I'm sure there are trees that are affecting multiple properties. But it would not be just private property to private property.
Jerry, thanks for the clarity on that. Any other council folks want to talk about this?
Another question. First off, I want to tell you, I appreciate your help. We've seen a lot of each other the last month and a half, 2 months. District 2, which I represent, is inundated with tree issues. That's mainly the Oak Hills area. If y'all recall, after some of the storms, they were inundated with problems in that area, and they remain today. So I guess this is a question for Scott and Sherry. If there is basically like the example Scott was given about trees bordering private property, but if there's a servitude in between, does that make it?
That's what I'm saying. The tree's not confined to a certain space.
Right.
So if it's interfering with the sidewalk, the utility servitude, blocking the street lights, blocking an intersection, the visibility of an intersection, all of those things. But if it's 2 tracts of land and the tree is maybe not interfering with any public utility or public service, then that's between the 2 neighbors.
Okay, I'm good.
Sherry, just as we've kind of mentioned, dead live oaks leaning over on my house that's sitting on Councilman Cook's property. and she won't cut it down, and it's going to fall on my house and, fall through my house.
So
That's between us.
that's between you all, but if there's a utility line, an electrical servitude there, or a sidewalk that the tree roots are picking up or something, or a lot of times a tree affects more than one property. But what the city's authorized to do is to protect the public property or to remove trees that are on, sometimes there are trees on public property that are danger to private property. So the city can remove trees on public property or on private property if they endanger public property.
Speaking of a tree, Councilman Monticello, the text you sent today with the tree being cut, where was that? Yeah, where? In Oak Hills, and that was on the sidewalk?
And
on
that
the
was
road?
actually, no, that's going to be partial. And Scott and I went out on that one. That's going to be partially in the right of way as well. We believe at this point.
It was a
Hasn't
dead,
been-
dead tree on,
That tree, he cut it down today. That's partial on the right of way, as we understand it.
Is this a state law or a federal law, or is this something that Baton Rouge put in years ago or something?
This is not from Baton Rouge. So no, the state constitution doesn't allow you to spend public money for purely private matters. So if it's only going to affect private property and it's not going to affect any public property, that's something that you wouldn't be authorized to do. But often a tree, in front of somebody's house, if it falls, it could fall in the street, or it's going to fall, take out the utilities or whatever. Nobody knows which direction this tree is going to fall. So depending upon the height of the tree, there's really a radius that has to be protected, and the private property owner would benefit from the city protecting the city's assets, right? But there are some locations where that tree, if it fell on a neighboring property, is only going to fall on the neighboring property. It's not going to touch anything that's public.
so this ordinance does,
I believe that ordinance covers the extent to which you can remove trees that are dead, dangerous, or causing, a threat to the public safety.
in our driving around and looking and surveying and whatnot, I mean, do we have a number of these trees that we've been looking into that we need to do something with, Scott, or what?
We can review it.
Well, I mean, have we had calls? Are we getting emails? Do we have people that,
I believe we've gotten calls. Yeah. Complaints.
And I call Scott immediately when I get a call, we'll go out and look at it.
so Scott, you had mentioned there at the desk that this is not the ordinance as you, why isn't it? What's happening? Like how's it not helping with what we're going to do in taking trees down that we need to take trees down?
So let me begin by saying I am not an attorney. So I do defer to Sherry because she is. My view was that since we can remove structures that pose a threat to public safety, like buildings that are dilapidated, and that we can cut people's grass on private property if they are in violation of our code. I was under the belief that there was a provision in this ordinance, I think it was subsection C somewhere, that said that if it was a threat to public safety, even on private property, that we would be able to take action after we provided proper notice to the homeowner that it was their responsibility to remove the public threat. And then if they did not take action, that we would have the capability to take action with the understanding that we would seek to try to recover any funds that we had expended. But apparently that is not permissible. And that was what I was hoping for. Maybe there will be a large percentage of these trees that will lie close to the public property, and that we'll be able to get a lot of what we wanted to get done.
Also, to Councilman Evans, we probably don't have a very accurate list yet because our code enforcement group hasn't been ramped up. So I would imagine that beginning in May, we'll start to receive more of this information to get a better handle on what exactly we're dealing with.
One thing I did not know that the other day on Hoosh 2 Road, about 3 houses down the road from me had a dying pine tree. And it was on the servitude side of the telephone poles. DEMCO came out there, dropped it, but they would not remove the tree. They cut it up, everything, but they would not haul it off. I just want to bring that out, that they're doing that at another place on Hoosh 2 right now. They did it today. Cut up a tree, dropped it, cut it up. It's out there. I'm just telling you what my neighbor told me.
That we'll need to address. There is a requirement that contractors that remove trees that dispose of them. So if it's a contractor removing the trees, and then we still do we're getting code enforcement, but we do need to do some work on our ordinances with respect to utility companies and their responsibility.
And utility companies typically have the right of way to come in to protect their lines and maybe even drainage, sewer,
Contractor
and
said.
use a contractor to do so. Okay.
All right. If I may say so myself, our little project here, I guess, of getting all the comments before the public comment period is working swimmingly so far. So I will open up the public comment period at this time if anybody would like to talk about the debtor disease tree ordinance.
Sean White, I live off of Hoosier 2 at Mallard Crossing. Just asking for clarity's sake, when you talk about dangerous trees, like I've done a lot of canvassing and some trees' roots have upended the sidewalks. If it's a live tree, is that something that would fall under this, or it has to be dead? And I know that we're ramping up code enforcement, but will the administrative officers you're appointing, would that fall underneath them? Let's say I disputed the assessment that my tree is dead. Would I go through that process for an appeal? And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Anybody else like to make a public comment on this item?
Torito, 10420 Pico Lane. I guess, I think you had said that the person who owns the property would be given 30 days. Is that what you had mentioned? To address a particular tree or subject that he had to remove or correct the problem?
I received it, but I changed it to 10 calendar days, and it could be on shorter notice depending upon the level of the hazard.
Well, the reason I ask this is there's times when you can't get in touch with someone in 10 calendar. That's not even giving you 10 working days. So when he said 30 days, I said, well, if that's the case, that's at least giving someone time to be able to make arrangements. A lot of times, especially when there's storms, you can't get anybody to cut a tree in a week or two. So I would make a suggestion to give more time, unless it's imminent. If there's an imminent problem, you probably have the opportunity or the authority to be able to go in and do it right away, just as though the tree fell down or something. That's one thing that I would bring up. And some people go out of town, they're out of town for a month. And if you're giving them 10 days, they don't have time to respond. The other thing is, I'm looking at this in the penalty section, $500 per day. And it can be addressed, it could be issued each day, $500. Well, I mean, the average person in this state doesn't make $15,000 in a month, and that's about what it would come out to be, is the way I understand it. The penalty for not having that tree cut down in whatever time frame is specified. Is that correct? I mean, $15,000 if the person keeps, I mean, that seems extremely steep to me. It's not like on a increasing amount, like, you know, starting out at 50, 100, or whatever it may be, and increasing as the person delays his response to the issue, to the notice. I had another thing here. If the tree is an imminent hazard to the public, the city inspector should leave a notice on the residence informing the owner that the tree will be removed or trimmed as necessary, and that he will be billed for the services. In other words, if it's an imminent issue, shouldn't a notice be left with the person then, not somebody go back to an office and send something through the mail, which our mail really, it's been a lot of issues. A lot of times you don't get mail for a week or 2 weeks after other people have already gotten theirs. The same mailing. So that's my issue on this, or at least my thoughts on this.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Can we address?
Can you explain?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the way the ordinance is written, it is a short period of time, but again, this could be a tree that is putting, you know, posing danger to the other neighbors, losing their electricity, losing the street lights, those sorts of things. So it does have 10 days, but that's going to have to be, everybody's going to have to be reasonable. And I expect that the enforcement team will be reasonable. And once the property owner contacts enforcement and says, hey, I got your notice and I intend to remove the tree, I think the city's going to work with them, because the city does not really want to be the one taking down the tree. That's really the most costly option for the property owner. It's cheaper for the property owner to take down the tree and not incur any fines or expenses. So it's a deadline that's in here, but there's discretion. There's going to be discretion among the enforcement team to try to come up with a reasonable solution. The fine as well, it's up to $500. A lot of times in enforcement cases, we waive the fines for the individuals to take care of the issue without any further intervention from the city. So reasonability has to be read on top of this, and hopefully everybody involved in the process will be reasonable. On the notice provision, you know, most of our laws require official notice delivery to the owners. A lot of times properties are owned by multiple people, sometimes former spouses, sometimes the property's been in succession. A lot of times enforcement cases come because the property is vacant or the property's been inherited by multiple people. So it just is the method of notice. I would believe that probably on all enforcement cases, notices would be left on the door in addition to mail. But mail is what we use for legal notices. I agree that it is slow sometimes, but the city wouldn't be able to take action until they know that the notice is delivered. So it would be sending it by certified mail, but it could also be left on the door. So that's why we put both of those options in there. But leaving it on the door is not considered valid notice to a property owner that doesn't reside there. And a lot of times enforcement cases are on properties where the owner of the property does not reside at the property. So we still do have to give notice to the owner of the property.
Anybody else want to make public comment on this item?
Michael Lala, 17914 Oaks Drive, St. George. I was wondering if you get a notice about a tree. Is there any way to appeal it? I didn't see anything in the ordinance that would give you the right to appeal. If you can have code enforcement go through there and just put a notice on someone's door, or, I mean, is that it? I mean, is that the only person that can, is there any way that you can come back as a citizen and say, well, wait a minute, my tree isn't really dead. It's not infringing on anything. So I didn't see anything in the ordinance that gave you a right to appeal. That's my question.
So, as I mentioned before, we have set up the administrative hearing process. So the administrative hearing process, to my knowledge, is how you appeal those actions. It's not included in this ordinance, because there's a separate ordinance altogether that deals with all of these things. So any ordinance,
It's in here. It would be subject to the administrative procedures in Title IV, and that's the administrative hearing officer. And I would guess that the notice is going to tell you who to call. Once, you get the notice, it's going to tell you who to call to communicate about the particular tree.
okay?
So let's
Hold
go.
on real quick.
Okay, all right.
Any other public comment on this item? All right, we'll close the public comment period. Richie?
So Sherry, let's go through a process. We a scenario here. We've talked about having an imminent potential danger of a real dead tree here that's any minute about to fall, especially with a storm like today or whatnot, right? But in theory, we're going to leave a note, and we're going to try to find these people at this house that no one lives in. The tree's about to fall on power lines or the street or a ditch or something, sidewalk. And then we have within 10 days, but I mean, we really may not have 10 days. We have tomorrow, or we have that night, right? So what plays out? And then we finally, within the 10 days, get the people call and say, oh, it's not my tree. It's not dead. My mom planted that 50 years ago. We can't cut it down. And they come to our hearing. So what kind of timeline are we really talking about protecting, our city property with a dead tree?
So that's why it has on lesser notice if it's imminent danger. And a lot of times municipalities in the parish do go out and do assessments, especially when they're expecting high winds or, bad weather, and trim things away from power lines and to try to protect the public, to protect the utilities, to protect structures. So that's an assessment that would have to be made. So I would guess that we're going to have a database of all the complaints, and they'll have to be assessed as to, whether or not it's imminent and faster action needs to be taken. If you take faster action without notifying the property owner and going through the process, the city is taking a risk as well, that the property owner will come back and say that tree was perfectly healthy. It was not anywhere near anything that was going to cause damage, and you now are responsible for the damage. We do carry insurance, so but that's just a risk assessment that'll have to be made. But it is very common to try to identify issues before they arise when we're expecting bad weather, whether it's drainage or things that could fall or things that could wind up in the roadway. Though I expect that all those things will be done.
Hold on real quick. And I just want to speak to the term that our attorney used, reasonableness. We want to be very reasonable. This isn't an unreasonable city, and we don't want to act unreasonable to our citizens. However, when you're creating ordinances, you have to create some accountability triggers in there as well. If somebody comes to us within the time period and they're showing good faith that they're going to act on this project, we're not assessing fines. At the end of the day, what are we trying to do here? We're trying to remove something that's presenting some type of harm to the public, whether public infrastructure or what have you. So I think the key term to remember here is reasonableness. We've been very reasonable so far in our planning and zoning and permitting process all along the way. At some point in time, you have to insert logic into government. You have to insert common sense into government. You can't stipulate everything in an ordinance. You can't legislate every particular scenario that will ever happen. So you have to have logic, you have to have common sense, and you have to use just some basic rules of being a reasonable people. And that's exactly the way that this is going to play itself out. Unfortunately, and I hate to say this, there are some unreasonable human beings. And everybody knows at least one name just popped in your head and you said, yep, that guy or that gal is exactly who I'm thinking about, right? So when you have unreasonable people and you have untenable situations, that's really why those things are there for. It's not to deal with Joe Torritos of the world that I know if I'm going to call him and go, hey, Joe, we got a problem with your tree. Let's try to figure out a resolution, right? And that's exactly how it 99.9% of the time it's going to work out. That 1% or less than 1% of the time where you're dealing with an unreasonable property owner, landowner, or whatever, that's why you have to have these triggers in place. So, Max, you want to say something?
Say something, Mr. Joe. It says the fine can be up to $500. It doesn't say we're even going to fine them. It just says up to, because there are people in this world who are not going to answer any kind of letter that you send them. Now there's just a guy with a badge delivering it. So I just want to bring that out, what it says.
Council, any other discussion? We have a motion. Motion to approve by Councilman Himmel. Second by Councilman Monticello. Any opposition to the tree ordinance? Hearing none, item is approved. All right. Item number 3, ordinance to enact Title 12, Chapter 9, relative to keeping and letting a disorderly place and to provide for related matters. Once again, this kind of ties into some of the code enforcement stuff that we will be embarking on here shortly. Scott, I guess you're the unlucky guy. Sherry, you want to talk about it? Okay, Sherry, talk about it.
Previously, you all passed several enforcement measures, one of which was related to massage establishments, and then other enforcement entities. So this makes the landowner, the property owner, responsible if there is a disorderly place kept on the premises, and that would be something that's causing a nuisance to the neighborhood. And so those items will be declared a nuisance, and then there will be responsibilities of the property owner are spelled out to keep order within the buildings upon the premises, whether occupied or vacant. And it would allow the city to take action and also impose civil penalties for landlords that don't take care of the disorderliness at their properties.
Can you share with people exactly what we're talking about here as far as what
Yes.
in that ordinance it constitutes a nuisance? Because I think it's important for everybody to hear that and understand what we're trying to counteract.
Going to be basically illegal activity that involves alcohol consumption, controlled substances, excessive noise, human trafficking, illegal discharge of firearms, or possession of storing of stolen goods, prostitution, or violence. And it will be presumed to be a disorderly location if in the preceding 12-month period, law enforcement has had to intervene. So this allows some repercussions. A lot of times property owners lease their properties to other businesses, and then they say, well, I'm not accountable because the tenant did it. So this makes the property owners somewhat responsible for maintaining their properties in an orderly fashion. Most leases allow the property owners to evict people for the same types of activities, but a lot of times they don't if the tenant's paying the rent. So this gives some incentive to the property owner to evict the tenant. It also allows the city to revoke the occupational license if the entity has one.
So if this is happening, is the correct process still to contact law enforcement first, or do they contact municipal services and have a complaint about it? They come to us. Obviously, we're going to probably go to Scott, but should they, because we've had some people ask about this and we tell them, call the sheriff and file the complaint. So is that
Yes, as
still
far
the
as
correct procedure?
any criminal conduct that's occurring, you
Well,
need to always
they don't
call
know.
law enforcement But if you know that there's a place in your neighborhood where law enforcement is constantly coming out and the same type of activities going on, you could file the complaint. This is a civil process,
Mm.
but this is in addition to the criminal repercussions. So both of them have to work hand in hand, but it gives the city the ability to take some action against the property owner.
else they can send an email to the enforcement. Let's say they go straight to it. So I'm going to send an email to enforcement, or I'm going to contact us, and we're going to contact you to go investigate it, see what's going on. Because sometimes they don't know if it's criminal activity going on. They just know they're loud, some music's going on. You know we have issues with noise ordinances, but they're sometimes right on the line of what's allowed and what's not. So then they find other stuff going on. So, all right, so file the complaint or call the sheriff if you think it's
If there's
criminal.
activity going on that needs to be prevented, if there are firearms, there's activity on the property, by all means, call law enforcement. But once law enforcement's been called out and the same activities going on, then it can be investigated as a civil complaint. But always call law enforcement to prevent whatever hazard might be occurring.
And another little point of clarity here, Sherry. So essentially, a residence would have to be, there would have to be two different occasions over the course of 12 calendar months. And then once that's established by a code enforcement group that this building or premise is a disorderly place constituting a nuisance, and the violations are given to the property owner has the ability to fix it, right?
Start an eviction process.
Okay. Point being is that if they follow the process of abating the nuisance, we have no other, that's what we're trying to accomplish here, right?
Correct. So again, this would go through the administrative hearing process. And so the landowner would be able to present whatever evidence. The landowner would have the opportunity to abate it before the hearing. And it's only through the hearing that the fines could be imposed.
All right. Thank you, Sherry. All right. We'll open up the public comment period on this item at this time if anybody wishes to speak on it. Come on, Sean.
Sean White, Hoosier 2, Mallard Crossing. Only one question is, what evidence is required to prove a property is disorderly? Is it, because in the thing, it doesn't say that you specifically have to have arrests there. So is it just complaints, or is it a combination? Or, and if that happens, if it's just complaints, only 2 complaints in a year could get them shut down for a year. So that's my question.
Other public comments on this item? I'm seeing none. We'll close the public comment period at this time. Sherry?
Generally, it doesn't have to be an arrest, but a neighboring property is going to be a nuisance if you live next door to it and there's constant noise, late night hours, those sorts of things. If you believe that there's human trafficking, and there's a list of things that are signs of human trafficking, which our staff will have and be trained in. And so a lot of times the evidence that we're using nowadays is everybody's got a phone in their pocket. And so a lot of times it's videos, it's photographs, it's sound recordings of what's going on. So there will have to be some evidence, of course, to prove that this conduct's going on. But I work with homeowners associations, and generally they send me videos, and the evidence is really good to be able to forward right now, because everybody's got a phone, everybody can video, everybody can sound record. And so you can see exactly what's going on the property. So we're not just relying upon statements anymore. We're relying upon actual video. A lot of people have cameras in, my cameras can see my neighbors. So a lot of times video footage from cameras. Some of the neighborhoods have cameras on their light poles in different places throughout. So I would expect it would be that kind of evidence.
Once again, too, whoever the complaint is being filed against, if they disagree with the complaint that's being filed against them, there's a process. They come through the administrative hearing process. They can state their case as the complainant will state their case. In my experience, there's very few people that aren't pretty sure of the issues that are going on or the nuisances that are occurring that would not come to testify for something like that. And generally speaking, in the ones that I've dealt with here, I guess over the last year, now we haven't had the enforcement power, but we will here shortly. It's generally not one. It's generally multiple neighbors. It's multiple issues. It's multiple reams of evidence, if you will, whether it's video, audio recordings, a lot of different things. So I think it goes a lot further than maybe you just ticked off your neighbor and your neighbor don't like you and then they call and complain, which I agree. I hope that doesn't happen. But I think the likelihood of them actually proving that that it's a nuisance, I think would come out during the administrative hearing process.
Well, and it also says that they're on disorderly place. Disorderly place when a law enforcement officer have one or more on one occasion in a 12-month period cited or arrested an individual or executed a search warrant. So Todd, law enforcement have gone and done a search warrant for any crimes involving all the things that Sherry mentioned, which is one of the things that we're trying to stop in St. George with some of the ordinance we passed as of late. And so it's more than just a phone call because Max is running the stereo too loud in the swimming pool. This is probably multiple law enforcement visits with search warrants to stop the nuisance, the disorderly process.
All right, any other comments? There, hear a motion? Motion to approve by Councilwoman Cook, second by Councilman Himmel. Any opposition? Hearing none, item is approved. Last item we have on here is approval of mayor's recommendation to appoint administrative hearing officers. We've kind of talked all through this entire meeting. We've talked about this over the last several months. Appointing the administrative hearing officer kind of completes the circle of the adjudication process for citizens of St. George when code enforcement takes place. So once again, it gives them an avenue to appeal a lot of these things that we actually talked about tonight. So we've been kind of ramping up to this point. We know that code enforcement goes in place in the beginning of May. And in order to have that adjudication process completed, we have to appoint a administrative hearing officer. I will present to the council one to appoint today. We'll probably have at least one or two other ones, just so we don't run into a situation where, these aren't full-time deals. These are once, maybe twice a month people. So they all have full-time jobs, and to make sure that they can accommodate with our schedule, it's probably more prudent to have more than just one that would be fulfilling this role. So the person that I have here is a gentleman named Mr. Paulo Messina. I'll give you a little bit of his background. He currently works for the Office of the Louisiana Attorney General. He's a section chief for civil Medicaid fraud, oversees all state and national Medicaid fraud cases involved in the state of Louisiana, handles all administrative matters for civil team, craft and draft new laws for Medicaid, handles all aspects of litigation, including drafting complaints, answers, discovery. Previous to that, he also had extensive work history with the parish attorney's office. So that's probably the biggest component to here is that he understands local government. He understands the administrative hearing process. He understands, the things that we will be going through. Spoke with him in depth about it. He was interested in being appointed to one of these administrative hearing officers. So I'll open it up to the public if the public would like to make comment on this particular item. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period on that. Council, do you have any questions? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilman Edmonds, second by Councilman Himmel. Any opposition? Hearing none, Mr. Messina is approved. All right, that's the end of our new business for tonight. Other business announcements. Next city council meeting will be Tuesday, May 13th. So that's 3 weeks from today, falls in one of those funny months where we kind of skip a week. But Tuesday, May 13th, 2025 at 5 p.m. Our Board of Adjustment meeting is Monday, May 5th, 2025 at 5 p.m. Planning Commission meeting is Monday, May 5th, 2025 at 6 p.m. All these meetings are here, by the way. The Zoning Commission meeting is Monday, May 5th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Also, our St. George Municipal Runoff elections for at-large and District 4 seats is May 3rd, 2025, with early voting April 19th through the 26th, 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m., excluding this past Sunday, April 20th, which was, of course, Easter. I did have one other thing to read here. Give me 1 second. Go ahead, Sherry.
We have posted on our website requests for proposals for administrative and development services, for auditing services, and for legal services for enforcement matters. And the full request for proposals is on our website, and anybody can apply. We encourage applicants.
Okay. Meg, can you come down here and do this? Because I can't open up my email, and I just like when I get you to come up here and talk, so. I can't open it. I don't know what the problem is.
Directly following the council meeting on Monday, the 13th, May 13th.
May 13th.
Yeah,
Wednesday-
May
or
13th.
Tuesday, excuse me.
Tuesday, yeah, hold on. Directly following the city council meeting on Tuesday, May 13th, will be another public information meeting regarding our all hazards mitigation planning. We'll go over the results of the survey that was sent out that we had over 100 people fill out. We'll go over what's next in the planning process, and we hope to see many, many faces there, members of our community that want to get involved and know what's going on.
Thank you, Meg.
Thank you.
All right. Everybody's favorite part. I have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Edmonds. Second by Monticello. Anybody opposed? Y'all have a great evening. Thanks for coming.